Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the Tattered Cover. Tonight we are fortunate to have Mei-Hong Xu, author of Daughter of China, with us. At the age of 17, Mei-Hong became a member of the People's Liberation Army. Due to her brightness and her devout patriotism to the state and the Communist Party, she became a part of an elite intelligence corps and was asked to spy on Larry Engelman, an American professor. As their friendship blossomed into love and her disenchantment with the system grew, she was arrested. We, gathered here tonight, are not in fear of choosing words and voicing them or putting pen to them. We cannot imagine a life of censoring ourselves or being censored. And we cannot realize the terror of being under constant surveillance and suspicion. I shiver at this thought, just as Mei-Hong shivered in her thin clothing in a freezing room at the beginning of 8 weeks of intense interrogation. Thankfully, she survived, and her story is an enduring triumph. Please join me in welcoming Mei-Hong Xu.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to come here and join me tonight. And also, I recognize some friends in the audience. I want to let you know that your presence is greatly appreciated here, and your support meant a lot to me. And I also want to thank Lisa Maxon, and she made my trip here such a wonderful and beautiful experience. Thank you, Lisa. And also, my thanks to Tattered Cover, of course. I heard so much about this bookstore, and finally, I got a chance to come here and visit it here, and I feel so honored. Years ago, a very good friend of mine, Anne Chi Ming, she's also the author of Red Azalea, told me that I would be committing a crime towards the mankind if I didn't tell my story to the world. With much encouragement from our agent, Sandra Dykstra, and also friends like Anne Chi herself and Joan Chen, who is the actress and movie director now, Larry and I started to work on the book in 1994. We named the book Daughter of China, which is based on Chairman Mao's poem. In Chinese, it says, 中华儿女多奇志，不爱红装，爱武装. Daughters of China with a marvelous will, you prefer hardy uniforms to colorful silk. I was born in a very small little town, small village actually, in China in the 60s. And my mother experienced some complications while delivering me. She lost lots of blood. And in order to denote the difficulty, also the triumph that my birth represented to the family, I was named Mei-Hong, beautiful red. By coincidence, red also indicates revolution and communism. So I should say that I was born to be a very dedicated red child. And when I started to talk, I was about 1 year old. Among the first sentences were, "We are not afraid of hardship or death." Done with the American imperialism. And I started my first martial training when I was about 7 or 8 years old. The school teacher will lead a group of us to go to an open field. We will be marching on the ground for hours with our weapon, our self-made wooden weapon. And we will be shouting slogans like, American invaders, you were surrounded, hands up, otherwise we're going to shoot. And it is this kind of education that I grew up with, and we were told that we were living in a very dangerous period of time, that the Americans were about to invade us anytime, and also the nationalists would attack us from Taiwan, and we were also threatened by the Soviets. But we were very fortunate that we had the greatest power on the earth, which is the People's Liberation Army of China, PLA. And the PLA not only defend us, protect us, but also aim at liberating the rest of the world from liberty, from starvation and injustice. So we call the PLA soldiers the most beloved. They were highly admired and respected, and they were also the heroes for our children. And so when I was a little kid, I dreamed that someday I would join the PLA and become one of the members, and to go with the crusade to help liberate the whole world and to save the humankind. So you can see from the photo here, I was about 11 or 12 years old, and a friend of my father was in the army, and he went to visit us. I begged him to let me put on his uniform and ask him to take a picture of me. I was only 11 years old. You can see that this uniform was oversized, and then the hat didn't fit at all. But I was very happy. And for me, that getting into the PLA was like something to getting, for a Christian to get into heaven. And in 1981, my dream did come true. I was inducted into the People's Liberation Army of China in the summer of 1981 when I was 17 years old. I became one of an elite group of 12 girls selected from throughout China to train and study in the most prestigious military intelligence school in the country, the PLA Institute for International Relations in Nanjing, which trained officers for the Intelligence Bureau in the Army. We were called the 12 Pandas, indicating that we were the treasures of the Army. During the next 4 years, we were trained intensively in military science, guerrilla and conventional warfare, survival techniques, weapon utilization, Communist Party doctrine, Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, and intelligence and counterintelligence operations, formal and curricular English, technical translation, and Western history and culture. We were reminded every day that we were being prepared to serve our country, our party, our army, and our family, and to bring honor to all of them. I recall that we were overwhelmed with patriotic pride and were intoxicated by the realization that we were literally heroes in training. The military life could be hard, but we welcomed the hardship. We were willing to sacrifice our youth as well as our life for the sake of our nation and for the sake of the communist cause. And the 12 of us were linked by a secret bond and a common destiny. We were young and red, and we believed we could do anything. But something went wrong. It happened gradually over the course of several years. We discovered that the longer we served in the PLA, the more our patriotic passion cooled. When we witnessed firsthand the corruption of the gods of our youth, the Communist Party and the PLA, our crisis of faith commenced. We found it nearly unbelievable, unbearable to believe that we might be dedicating, even sacrificing our lives to a cause in which we no longer believed. Yet, we clung desperately to the faith of our youth when we felt it fading, and we feared that without it, we were nothing. And during the late 1980s, communism was collapsing all over the world, And like the young people of my generation at that time, I was going through this crisis, this end of the ideology syndrome. And I was lost. I was confused. I didn't know what to believe anymore. But it was kept secret. And in 1988, I was commissioned as the first lieutenant of the PLA. And also I was sent to get further training from the Johns Hopkins Nanjing University Center for Chinese and American Studies. That's a joint venture efforts between Johns Hopkins and a university in China. That's actually the first joint venture educational institution in China. So I was sent there to learn English and also Western style and Western history from American professors to be further prepared for my future task. And I didn't realize that this experience changed my life. In early September 1988, I packed some of my books and belongings in 2 bags and arranged to be driven to the center in a military car. The driver helped me carry my bags inside. As I passed through the large glass doors into the lobby, I was unaware that I was not merely moving into another educational institute. I was entering a new world that would change me and my life in ways I'd never dreamed. I sensed that I was changing, and I felt that I behaved like a child whose eyes had just opened and who was seeing the world for the first time. I experienced a sense of wonder at new possibilities. I felt good to be alive again. And another reason that I was sent to the center was we were expecting that a secret CIA agent was sent to the center, and I was actually assigned to spy on him. His name is Larry Engelman. Larry was working on his book about Vietnam, and he was hired as a visiting professor to teach in the Johns Hopkins Center in China. On his way to China, he stopped and paid a visit in Vietnam. And he interviewed lots of high-ranking Vietnamese officers. And also, he was planning to stay in China for 2 years, so he sent over all his research papers. And one of them is a case of declassified CIA document. And you know that in the communist society, it's not unheard of that a document, confidential document could be declassified. As you know that in the former Soviet, their documents were kept forever. And so that drew further suspicion from the government. And we were wondering why this professor could get the access, could get hold of such, confidential document. So I was sent there and tried to find out what the purpose of his, staying in China was and who he wanted to contact. And but here we described the first meeting that we had. It's quite a shocking experience to me. My fate was sealed the moment I first saw the American walking so confidently with his long stride and his big grin down a hallway to his office. When we passed, he said hello, and just for a second, we looked into each other's eyes. In such a casual way, the last act of my career, the last sad act of my career in the army and my life in China began. As I got to know Larry more and more, I was fascinated about the world that he presented in front of me. It is a totally new world. And in his humor and compassion, his fearlessness and optimism, and and his openness and his honesty. I saw a whole new world. In him and through him, I found hope. For that, we both paid a price. So we formed a very close friendship, which caused us trouble, of course. And the POA felt offended, and they sent a friend to come and arrest me. It is November the 2nd, and I got a phone call, and somebody said, a friend of yours is coming to visit you. Why don't you come here and we have to sign a kind of a notice so the guest could come in. But as I went to see this person, and he told me that I was asked to get back to the institute for some emergency meetings, and I didn't have any clothes on. I had only very thin, sweater, and it's very cold. And so I told him that I need to get back and to get a jacket, and he said, no, it's unnecessary. He said, we do not have any time. He reached out and tightly grasping my arm, and there is a coat for you in the car. I suddenly felt sick. I knew he was lying to me. When I moved a bit, I felt his grip on my arm tighten. I noticed his nervousness and felt a pang of pity for him. I realized he had been given no choice. He was a personal friend as well as a fellow officer, and this was his official assignment, to get me into the car and to take me somewhere. I'd seen this many times before, an officer ordered to betray a friend. Who better, after all, to help extricate someone calmly and without notice than a good friend? All of us in military intelligence had become practitioners of duplicity. It was standard operation procedure in our work, the art of betrayal. Now, as I realized what was happening, I felt sorry and ashamed for both of us. Now, followed my arrest, there is a confession that was expected. Immediately, I noticed that in China, the truth would never save me nor set me free, because the truth is seldom true. The Communist Party determines what is true and what is not in China. When someone is accused of a crime, he is assumed to be guilty until proven innocent. Therefore, to proclaim one's innocence following an arrest constitutes an insult as well as a challenge to the machinery of the party, and is more likely to compound the miseries of the accused. A trial is just a showcase. Acknowledging one's errors, apologizing, and naming one's accomplices are the mandatory first steps on the road to rehabilitation. But I was charged of treason. So I decided to take a road less traveled. I decided to keep my integrity instead. So what happened was I was threatened on a daily basis that I could be executed any minute because of my background and, of course, my crime. We are in an open space. I can barely see the ground. The sky is starless. I hear footsteps behind me, and then someone pushes me to a kneeling position. My arms are pulled back and tightly bound together behind me. I gaze at the eyes when one of the soldiers raises his hand and holds his pistol a few inches from the back of my head. I closed my eyes tightly I think of him one last time, my American. As I remember him at this moment, will my thoughts fly to him? Will he hear my last unspoken words? Will he whisper my name when I fall? Will he remember me? My military records will be purged. No documentary evidence of my career or my crime will remain. I will be erased from existence and become a non-person. My family and friends will be told that I disappeared. They know what that means. They will not ask questions and will not ask my name aloud, will not speak my name aloud for a long time. Well, if you want to know why I stayed alive and how I survived, how I escaped from China and finally landed in California, I suggest that you check it out. It's the book. And I'm very, very pleased that Daughter of China is very well received so far. It is selected as one of the 4 best non-fictions by Reader's Digest. And also it is nominated for a National Book Award. And it was first released in the UK in July this year. And it's also available in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in Australia, Africa, and also we sold the rights to other European publishers. And I heard that actually Daughter of China hit the bestseller list immediately when it was released in Hong Kong. And yesterday, before I came here, I got a notice from my publisher that Daughter of China is the #1 bestseller in Singapore. And I hope you enjoy reading it. And with that, just questions.
Your family still in China?
Yes, half of my family is still in China. My brother, his family, and my father is still there. But I'm very fortunate that I have my sister and my mother here with me. Yes, Bill?
As far as you know, how many of the 12 pandas are still serving under the PLA?
Actually, so it's such a dilemma for the government. On the one hand, they want to train us. They want us to work efficiently with the foreigners, or when we were signed abroad. So we were exposed under a lot of Western culture, and but as we got trained further and further, we got to know more about the Western society. We become kind of rebellions. We had lots of thoughts about the communism. So by the end of the 1980s, most of us left, actually. Yes. Yes.
I'll translate him. 我有2个问题，第一个问题是你认为在中国在不久的将来，你会出版这本书？第二个问题呢，如果普通老百姓念完这本书，他们有什么样的反应？他们对你的工作有了解吗？
The first question is that this book is going to be in Chinese?
Yeah. 你认为在不久的将来你会出版这本书？
You said that. Do you think in the near future you're going to publish the book? Is that what you mean?
在中国你会
Okay, in China. His question said, do you think in the near future that this book is going to be published in China? I certainly hope so. But I doubt it. I think that it will take several years for the government to let it in. but right now I don't think so. But I'm very pleased, as I said, that it's available in Hong Kong, and a lot of people, I mean, Hong Kong is now part of China, and a lot of people go back and forth between Hong Kong, China and the mainland. So I have no doubt that a lot of people in China might have this book.
And the argument ni renwei putong lao by saying dui ni de gong zo yo shemian de fan ying tamen yo liao jie ni ma.
Your question is that you think that the ordinary people in China, or do they know much about what I did?
Yeah. We need to go to yo liao jie tamen renwei ni shi ga jungle how new are. I see.
That I think, I don't know, seriously. He says, do you think that the ordinary Chinese people would think that I'm a good daughter of China? Again, I hope so. And I believe that I love China dearly, and it is always my motherland. I will do all I can to help that country, and I still have my family and very good friends there. I hope the best for China. But I do believe that, in a sense, that the communism, the system failed me, and I discovered some of the unpleasant sides of the system, and it created some conflicts. And so it is real that the communist society or the system, they would have the reason to think that I betrayed them. But I just think that it's just the system, it's not the country. If you talk about China, I love China dearly. Thank you. Yes?
Why do you think the Chinese government allowed it to be sold in Hong Kong?
I think they have some pre-agreed agreement between Hong Kong and mainland China. They still, I can see that some of the books about the students leader from Tiananmen, their books were published there as well. So yes, I'm very confident that in the future China would change, and for good. Yes.
Do you ever imagine what would have happened if you hadn't met Larry Engelman? I mean, you were changing anyway, it sounds like, but...
Yes, I think the process would take longer, and I might be still in China and wondering what could happen to me. Yes.
How do we know you weren't trained to write a bestseller which would become a movie which would make millions and that money would be funneled out of the country? Well, maybe not.
I will use. I don't know yet, but yeah, I'm very pleased about the initial success of the book, and it's my goal to help people who are in difficulties. And I think my experience taught me a lot, and I learned to be humble, and I think that my situation, my experience, toughened me in a way and made me stronger, but at the same time softened me, because I can feel that I could relate to people who are in trouble, and so I could feel some connections there, and in the future I will try my best to help those people. Thank you. Yes.
Are you planning another book?
I'm thinking of that, but right now, yeah, I'm really busy with this book, and also try to work on the film. So, yes, it's my plan. Thanks.
Mei-Hung, with your unique insight into the Communist Party and now your perceptions of our American foreign policy and so on and so forth, tell me this: do you have any? How do you see the Red Chinese and Taiwan conflict in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? Think can be resolved peacefully, or do you see potential conflict there, military conflict?
Yeah, right now it's very unfortunate that there are a lot of issues between mainland and Taiwan. But for most of the Chinese, we want to see that these two parts get united. And Taiwan just had such a terrible, earthquake, and a lot of mainlanders. We're still very poor, but they donated a lot of money to Taiwan, try to help the people there. And myself visited Taiwan the first time half a year ago, and I felt it's like my home because it's Chinese and everything, the air and the way that people talk and the way that people relate to each other. I feel really at home, and I hope that things will work out between the two sides. Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming again.